Okay, welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the non-democratic Republic of Sikhistan. If I could stop stuttering. Today what we're going to be doing is practicing posing for the Sikhistan National Bodybuilding Championships. But anyway, you guys ask a lot of great questions in our comments. And we're always asking you to ask questions. We're always saying, if you have any questions, ask them in the comments below. And sometimes we do respond to them. But other times, there's a lot of great questions and we think they're actually worth a video on their own. And that's exactly what we're going to do today.
And we're always looking for a free video.
We're always looking for videos, lads.
And just the funniest thing is, sometimes it'll be stuff like that Broderick one, right? Where everyone's arguing about Broderick and someone in the comments is like, should I do sit-ups or peel-off press? Just in the middle of people arguing about doping and like Broderick's a cunt and they're like, what should I do for my core work?
No, it's always, the great questions are always like, nothing to do with this video.
Yeah.
But
yeah, sorry, that's the voice we put on you, I don't know why.
So that's the voice that most people have in our comments. Except there's then a voice where a lot of people are like, nah, 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 nah.
Yeah, no one asking questions is that voice though.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we love your questions.
Yeah.
You ask some great questions.
Uh-huh.
There's some dumb questions too, but that's absolutely fine. We're two dumbasses.
Yeah.
And today we're going to pick through these. We're both going to be doing a little scrolling. The ones that pick our fancy. These are the questions that were in the All Blacks video, the most recent All Blacks video. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. There'll be a link down below. 14th of December it was put out on. So anyway,
nobody knows what the plate step up thing is really for, except for one person thinks it might be for, like I mentioned, the A-B skip thing. There's some kind of drive phase. A few people said they did it, and they had friends who did it, and they didn't know what it was
that's
for.
The funniest thing, where they're like, oh yeah, we do them, but nobody knows why.
And I'm glad people also remember that there was a time where high pulls and behind the neck presses would fuck up your shoulders, which I'm really glad people remember that, because that was a thing.
Yeah.
A salty New Zealander, that we beat them, but
shock.
As I said, we'll just shit the bed before the next World Cup anyway, so it's fine.
Oh yeah, we've peaked too early. Coming too early is just a classic Irish rugby tradition.
Jesus.
Anyway, Ryan O'Connell says that he has had a discussion with his professor in his S&C class, and his professor says you should never press behind the neck.
I'd love to hear her reasons for that. I'd love to know what she thinks you should not be pressing behind the neck for. So is it like you're going to get injured? Is it a suboptimal pressing position? I'd be really interested to see what a very straight bar pat would be a problem with. I'd be very interested to see what that would be.
I'd also love to know, like, because obviously she's not going to say you should never ever do a snatch balance. Like, I think that would be rare that someone would say no. Snatch balance as an exercise is undoable, or doing the overhead squat with weight where you're putting it on your back beforehand is undoable. You should never ever do that. So I would love to see that kind of rationale of, like, is there a width that my grip can suddenly become where I'm now allowed to do pressing behind the neck?
Like, at what point does, when the bar goes from 2 inches further back from where your front rack is, maybe 3 inches for some people, probably about 3 inches, let's say, at what point does that go back there and you're no longer able to press safely?
Yeah.
Where does it stop becoming effective?
From here to here, like.
I'd love to know what your, did you say university lecturer?
Yeah, S&C class.
S&C class. I'd be very interested to see what that person's reasons for. Because if, for example, you could use it as a symptom, like if behind the neck pressing is hurting your shoulders, it's not that behind the neck pressing is a problem. It means that there's something wrong with your shoulders and you should probably go look at that. So if you have an injury, then I'd be like, okay, don't press behind the neck of your shoulders. Go fix your mobility
in the
issues.
same way where if you had a broken leg, you wouldn't be squatting. And also, if you had an injury, you wouldn't be pressing in front of the neck either.
No.
Next great question is from someone called Wido.
Where's that?
Wido.
Go on.
Says...
Oh, yeah.
Regular commenter on the live streams as well, so great to see you tuning into all modalities of Seeker Strength propaganda. Says, do you guys think they should be doing high bar back squats instead of low bar, especially given they were doing deadlifts and that? I have an opinion on this.
So especially given they were doing deadlifts and that, so do you think they should be doing high bar squats instead of low bar? So I'm not too concerned about the bar placement on for these players. What I'd be more concerned about is back angle and then knee angle and knee travel. Realistically, would be the most important things to be looking for this. Ideally for them, you'd be looking for everyone when they're squatting, regardless if they're an elite rugby player like the All Blacks or just a general gym goer. What we want to see is we never see a change in flexion in your back, or never really a change in the angle of your back during the squat. So whatever first and foremost would allow this player to maintain a constant and consistent angle in their back and no flexion at any point, or minimal flexion, is the main thing you'd be looking for. So with varying degrees of bar height along their back would be whatever's adequate for them. Then you'd be looking for what allows for the most knee travel forward, because realistically a low bar to parallel with rearward hip travel isn't really much use to our rugby players. And we're also going to be definitely changing our back angle to a certain extent if we're sending our hips very far back with minimal knee travel. So ideally, rugby is a very explosive sport. It's a very quad dominant sport. There's a lot of legs and ass involved in rugby. So the main thing you'd be looking for is what gives them the most stimulation and the most weights. Whatever a healthy balance between the two of those is for quads, ass, and a safe squat would be the main thing. The position of the barbell doesn't really matter so much for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, Garth just stole my opinion there.
Shit.
Yeah, so with rugby players, and this goes for almost every athlete, aside from strength sport athletes, the bar placements, the whatever you want to call that, whether it's high bar, low bar, it doesn't matter. For all of our athletes, it's not something we'd really focus on. It's different if they're powerlifting or obviously if they're weightlifting. Most of the time, rugby players, particularly larger rugby players, and kind of more contact sport athletes will have a mid-bar position. Can you spin around in your seat?
I can.
So a mid-bar position would be, if we consider kind of mid-traps to be where a high barbell would sit during a high bar back squat. If we consider somewhere in the center of the shoulder line, so between armpit and top of the shoulder, that centered area is probably where we're sitting for low bar. Then we look for the bony crest here, and that's where we would typically see a mid-bar position sitting. That's perfect. What that allows basically to do is allows people to keep their center weight small bit further back, allows them to stay upright easier. So if you're imagining you're shrinking that lever arm a small bit, and then it just allows for better movement patterns overall. So a lot of these guys aren't going to be extremely proficient, or a lot of athletes aren't going to be extremely proficient in very nice deep squats. Bringing that bar down by about 1.5 inches for most people makes a huge difference to the quality of their squat, the amount of weight they're able to push in that squat, and how fast and how quickly they can progress the squat to being big, strong men and women.
What do you mean by close grip French? What do you mean by close grip French press is what you should be using? This is just for rugby or question mark? So this, in this case, was just for rugby. So there's probably a couple of reasons you'd be preferably using close grip, or, well, not really close grip. It's not close grip in terms of what bodybuilders be using. So when we're looking for like more tricep activation, we see bodybuilders are very close. We see inside nipple or shoulder angle, but close grip in terms of what most people do at benching is actually just directly in line with the shoulder, which would be the most transferable to rugby. It's probably the safest pressing position, so it's the least likely to put any pressure on elbows, shoulders, pecs, or the least, put them in the most favourable position that you're not going to get injured, because as you saw, they're pretty aggressive benching. They're very heavy weights. They do it quite frequently. They do it in actually every single video we've seen, and it's very useful for rugby. It's a phenomenal upper body pressing movement. One of the very important things with benching, and especially for rugby, is just the level of weight you can use in a pressing motion for the upper body is one of the huge benefits of benching, because you can get up to like 140, 150, which we saw them doing for reps. Whereas if you're doing strict press, realistically, a lot of them aren't going to be able to press more than 90 kilos for a single. And even if they could a little bit more than that, it would still be literally for a single, you know. Whereas at benching, you get up to super heavy weights. And at a certain stage, absolute weight is the thing that matters a lot. Like we talked with that back squat, would you prefer 180 kilo full depth squat or a 280 kilo to just below parallel squat with those? And in most cases, as these are advanced athletes, you'd prefer that 280 kilo just below parallel for that level of power. There's just something that happens to your system, to your organism, that when you use a lot of weight, there is a particular effect that you get from just using heavy weight that we don't get from other kinds of stimulus. It's its own unique stimulus, and it is very useful. It incorporates everything as much as possible. It's incorporating more high threshold motor units. It's incorporating a lot more of the upper body as much as possible. You're likely to get everything you can in with these heavier weights. So this would give you that kind of nice balance between, again, like the high bar, low bar, safe pressing position, but still strong. And then a little bit of like kind of transfer. I know we don't really like to talk about it too much, like we're replicating movements, but in this case it is a similar plane of motion. I know you're lying down horizontally on your back, but it's like minor. It's like literally 2% of it, but you might as well do that as well if you can get it in with all these other more important areas in the gym.
The other thing you have to look at is there's a reason almost every strength and conditioning coach in like semi-contact sports, or realistically in any sport, if people are bench pressing, they're using what we referred to there as the close grip, like just standard width. So it obviously increases range of motion versus like our super arched wide powerlifter bench press. It's also training a range or a system of movement that's much more applicable to fending off, to taking an impact. It's also developing muscle a hell of a lot better than a very, very short range of motion, very pec dominant thing like a wide grip bench would. There's a reason why every weight room in the world, some of them you might see them like creeping out, and they'll let them do the kind of powerlifter style bench maybe in the off season, but realistically most athletes will want to be doing the close grip, which is shoulder width grip, because it's just a better development tool. You don't have a huge amount of time to be messing around in the gym. You probably only have 2 or 3 sessions a week, and it's just better for overall development if you keep the benching closer gripped.
I'm laughing here because someone said that the airy fairy step up with the plate is part of someone called France Bosch or Bonds or whatever they said system, and I'm on the website now and it is
oh my god
comical.
Oh my god,
Jesus Christ. I don't know. Let's just forget about that anyway.
Let's
So Scott says, what core midline stuff do you like for weightlifting / powerlifting? So again, obviously an unrelated to the video here. So we're a big fan of standing core work if you can do it. So like pale off press, stuff like that is very, very useful with a resistance band, maybe with a kettlebell, whatever way you're able to set it up. Big fan of that kind of stuff. We do like GHD sit-ups, so not below the line of parallel. So we don't want to be going over flexion backwards. There's no real reason to. So 2 parallel. In general, we like to weight those as well, but normal sit-ups are quite useful. Huge fan of any variation of a side plank. It's one of the best ones. It's our like favorite thing to give people. You'd be surprised on the people who aren't able to hold like a side plank, or especially a starfish side plank, for more than like 15 seconds. So any of that kind of static stuff is very, very good. But a little bit of flexion and movement is quite useful, especially for, I know you said for weightlifting and powerlifting, but again for like rugby players and stuff like that, you should be able to, like those kind of GHG sit-ups and stuff are quite useful because they are static, maintaining a position while kind of moving through range of motion. So train your upper body to be stationary while moving it a little bit as well is very, very useful, because again you get that like transfer to the training for the pitch is kind of stupid, but again we want to be looking a little bit into that corner, just shining a tiny little light and going, okay, so he's a rock climber, so we don't need him to squat 280, so you still want some context, but you don't want all of that context to be shined in on your gym movements, but a little bit sometimes is no harm, just to a minor amount. So that's generally what we'd like. So those side planks is a big one. Any kind of like arms overhead extended plank is a great one.
Yeah, I think just like if someone was to look at all the work I give athletes, they do 70% of all their midline work is static isometric work. So plank, side plank, back extension hold, single leg glute bridge hold. All of these things are just isometric work, as Gareth was saying, to be able to maintain a position well. And then the other stuff is the kind of snazzier or higher volume stuff. So they might have side plank leg raises, they might have Russian twists, they might have pale-off press, as Gareth has just said, and all these things just kind of flesh out that core and midline work. But the vast majority of the core and midline work is isometric. If you want to know as well, like what's good for a plank, so like we're just talking there about most people having terrible side planks. Like, what's a good movement standard for a side plank? How long can you hold a side plank? How long can you hold a standard plank? We've quoted a number of times before, 30% of body weight added to the hips for 2 minutes on a standard plank is kind of what you want to be aiming for.
Husey said Louis Simmons weed geo on weightlifters.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. Cow Lander is saying cat cow, not cat dog, right? Did I say cat cow? I must have said a cat cow. And Lucas finally is asking about the jump program, and we'll definitely have the jump program. Sika Hops will be, I think, for sure. Just haven't.
It's in.
It's in the list.
It's on the list.
It's on the list. Okay, I think we
The
got
list
there.
is over there. I think we did get it to everyone. Right. Thanks very much for watching. If you'd like to put a load of questions in the comments of this video, we'll certainly get around to it.
Yeah.
Or we'll do our best to get around to it. We get distracted a lot, and a lot of the time good video ideas come up and we miss out on other video ideas. And the only way to keep on us is to keep commenting, keep annoying us, keep harassing us, and we'll try and get to it. One place that's not good to ask us questions is Instagram DMs, because a lot of the time we see them and we're like, oh, that's a great idea. And then we forget about the DM. Yep. So comments on the videos are great. And if you really are very, 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 very interested in getting your question answered, all you have to do is tune into one of our live streams, be there in the first 10 minutes probably, and ask your question. And there's a very, very good chance we'll get to that question. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all again soon.